Hello everybody and welcome to another one of my OC redesigns. Today I am redesigning my character Mara, another one of my villains. Her original design, or most recent anyway, is in the top left corner if you want to see what the difference is. If you saw my previous video, you might remember her being married to Eamon's sister at one point, and if you can't tell, she is wearing his sister. Listen, reduce, reuse, recycle, you know? Anyway, apologies for the lack of quality of this video and SPEEDPAINT. I'm away this weekend, so I needed to do this in half a day, so I took quite a lot of shortcuts in the meantime, so just ignore any mistakes, okay? So, you may have noticed I actually included my sketching process in this video. I know, crazy. I figured if I did the pose before I started recording, then that would get rid of the whole problem of doing 20 poses in 20 minutes before I decided on one. Also, fun fact, I had finished the sketch and then I pressed the X button on Krita to close another canvas, but I didn't press the X button that closes one canvas. I pressed the X button that closes all the canvases, and I forgot about it, and I closed both canvases and I had to start the whole thing all over again. So, go me! Anyway, so on with the redesign. Honestly, I didn't change much. I kept with the steampunky color palette, although in the middle of this I thought about going more gothic considering how dark the character is. So expect another redesign video on Mara in the future if this idea sticks in my head, which it probably will. I made Eamon's sister's hair longer, and before you say her hair should have fallen out by now, I want to say it has. But Mara keeps fixing it. You know, her entire day is spent on upkeep of her wife's corpse and keeping her heart that's in a test tube beating. Or is that like a little bit too big to be considered a test tube? You know what? It's a test tube because I say it's a test tube. Also, I don't know if I want this to be canon or not, but I had the thought while drawing it, so you have to hear it now too. You know, I have to think these things, you have to hear these things. What if Eamon's sister was still conscious since her heart's still beating, and this is a fantasy world, so we can bend reality and say that that would somehow work, and I can make up a reason for it. And on top of that, it means she still bleeds. That's why I put blood around her mouth at the end. It was a random idea and a little morbid. I was going to do dry blood, but then I realized dry blood is brown, and I really didn't want to do that. I mean, imagine being able to feel someone wearing your skin and like moving around in it. And also like feeling your body decaying until someone gets the chance to fix you up again. Icky, right? But, you know. By the way, off topic, but I came up with Mara's concept when I was around 8 or 9. Was I okay as a kid? Probably not. I grew up watching animation memes, so that's probably why. I also made her outfit more detailed because she honestly deserves it at this point. And I didn't draw it because I thought the heart was more important to include, but she's one of the very few of my OCs that just uses a pew-pew instead of a fancy weapon. She's a sniper, if you really want to know what type of pew-pew she has. And yes, she also has a giant robot arm, and there is a reason for that too, besides, ooh, fancy robot arm. So, Mara grew up in the same village as Kiora, Eamon, and his sister, and she marries Eamon's sister, who's often very ill. If you want me to go into like more depth to this, there's like more in my Eamon video already, which is the video before this one. But after the fire, that's going to be very random to anyone who hasn't seen that video, but you know, after the fire, Eamon's sister is probably like, you know, a little bit conflicted because her brother that took care of her as a child obviously just tore the place apart, basically, and was now assumably dead. But since her brother was dead and Kiora left the village, the role of high priestess is, I'm not even going to try to say that in the first time, so you're just going to have to get me saying it wrong, okay? But that role went to her and Mara. Unfortunately, being such public figures and basically the ruler of a whole village means that 9 times out of 10, people will always know where you are. So when Morgan tells Eamon she wants human test subjects who have connections with deities, instead of volunteering himself, which would have probably killed him in fairness, so, you know, or seeking out a different ruler with direct connections with a deity, he's like, hold on, my sister and her wife have a direct connection with a deity, and decides to take the lazy route, do no research, and just go after the sickly ruler who can't really fight back. So Eamon obviously succeeds in his little kidnapping plan. mainly because his sister was so happy to see him alive and also believed, despite the fact that she heard Eamon was the one that killed their parents and set the gaff on fire, that he didn't, because he's her sweet older brother, and he also told her Kiora lied to her and it was her that did all of that and then tried to kill him. Because why would she not believe him, you know? Like, he just turned up and now he has pink stuff all over him. It's fine. So, with what I'm sure was quite a difficult thing to do, he dragged her and Mara back to Morgan. I mean, you know, it has to be hard to drag two unconscious bodies halfway across the country. So, props to him, I guess. Don't kidnap people. Not props to you for kidnapping people, but you know, it's a hard feat to do, you know? Morgan then tells Eamon that the experiment will require one of them to die because what she wanted to test was how far she could change a human through grief. It's probably worth mentioning that Morgan's not human or Damon. She's a type of shape-shifting monster that I have yet to name. I haven't named the species, okay? Don't come for me, okay? I'm lazy. Also, if you're wondering why they need direct connections to deities, it's because A, humans without direct connections with deities can die if certain sigils are used on them, or if a human tries to take a deity as a familiar and they don't have the right blood for it, they also kick the bucket. So Morgan wasn't out here trying to kill half the population looking for a descendant of a high priest. She already did that once and it took too long. So you'd think at this point Eamon would tell Morgan to kill Mara, or said, hold up, that's my sister and her wife, let me get you someone else. But he actually specifically asks if he can kill his sister, purely for the fact his little deity friend tells him that she's his only weakness. And Eamon, as we established before in the previous video, is super power hungry. So now you probably think he'd make his sister's death as painless as possible. And he probably would have if it weren't for the fact that Morgan was like, you totes can unalive her, but like make it as gory as possible because I need her wife as traumatized as physically possible. And before you say, oh, I'm sure he said he wouldn't do it then, he's no wuss, okay? He's not about to cop out, okay? So yeah, I'm not going to go into the details because I think I'm already pushing YouTube with the character and my descriptions, but to keep it short, her mouth is not the way it is because Mara's wearing her. That came before that. Oh, also, Eamon does cry. He's not an absolute monster. Or is he more because he does this stuff despite feeling the consequences? I don't know. You tell me. I'm not able to think that deeply, to be honest. Anyway, so with Morgan satisfied and Mara and Eamon sufficiently traumatized, Morgan finds out about Mara's medical and engineering background and decides to see what would happen if she left Mara and her now not very okay wife in her lab. The result is the heart in the tube, or I don't know what else to call that. It's a tube because I say it's a tube. We've already established this. It's a tube because I say it's a tube. It is technically a tube, isn't it? It's a container. It's like a can, like a glass can. Mara managed to get it to beat again. And by doing this, it stopped Lady Death, who I have a redesign of, by the way, if you want to look at that, from taking her soul since she was now technically alive, despite the lack of oxygen in her brain. Listen, it's fantasy. It's not scientific, okay? If that isn't obvious from everything else that just happened. She does this with all her other organs as well. But the heart's the important one, in my opinion, because, I mean, who cares about the brain and everything else, okay? The heart has more meaning, okay? Some organs share the same tube or glass can, like her entire digestive system, while others, like her brain and heart, are in a separate one because science, fantasy science, I don't know. I only wrote this, okay? Why would I know how the fantasy science works in it? Why would I know? Okay? Anyway, so Morgan sees this and is like, damn, she's smart. Let's traumatize her more. So, like, torture happens, because, you know, why not? And eventually, Morgan's like, yo, since you're not using your wife's skin, I'm gonna throw it out. She stinks, girl. And Mara's like, I am so using it. Because Mara still wants to put her wife back together, obviously. And since she's not exactly that sane anymore, she's like, look, I'm going to wear it and then you can't take it because I'm using it, and now she also refuses to take it off. Way to go, Morgan. You made the entire place smell because of your little joke. Do you know how many employee complaints you're gonna get now? So Mara seems to somewhat think that Eamon is his sister as well. Like, not quite, but he looks enough like his sister where she's like, you know, comforted? I don't know. But that's why I said in the previous video that him being blonde was important. I told you it was. Just saying. I know. I'm so great. I don't know how this plot point actually worked when he had grey, greasy hair. But I don't know. Ask younger me. Younger me must have had an explanation to how they looked similar when they looked completely different. And you know what? It might have been, and it might still be, because of the fumes from her odd clothing choice. Just saying. Or maybe she's just, that rattled. But he hates looking at her because, I mean, if it's not obvious, it should be obvious. Is it obvious? But anyway, she'll pretty much do anything he asks with only like a minor bit of sass. I mean, it's quite obvious he's not actually her wife because he's, for starters, he's a man. But there's other reasons, I suppose, as well. He's just talking really deep, and she's like, "That's a woman right there. That's my wife. My wife with the really high pitched voice. That's the highest pitched voice I've ever heard in my life." And he's speaking in like 3 octaves lower than the average person. She seems to have forgotten about him unaliving her wife, though, and keeps touching his hair, which freaks him out because, I mean, for the sake of YouTube, let's just say he doesn't mind as much when she has her glove on. Yeah, let's go with that. So Mara, by the time the story takes place, has gotten tasked with recapturing Elva, who wasn't actually captured in the first place. She volunteered, and then she proceeded to skedaddle the second she got the chance, which is so fair. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of this video. I promise it's not normally this dark to anyone who's new, but if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, and the Irish word of the day is I really should write these down. Okay. It's words, it's not one word, but you know what? It'll work. Ban Kayla Sosta, which means happy wife. Bye now.